finally been 104 days for Phineas and Ferb. Even though for us it's been 8 years, 104 days has finally passed for them. The last episode, Last Day of Summer, finally aired. And this is going to be my review of it. So, what did I think of it? Let's tell the plot first. So, the plot is that it's the last day of summer, and Phineas and Ferb decide they're going to do the best thing they can think of, which is pretty much this giant thing that has a bunch of slides and stuff, and they all agree that maybe it wasn't the best thing, so they go back to the drawing board. While that's going on, Candace knows it's her one final time she can try to bust her brothers. So she goes and tries to bust them, but like always, she doesn't get it. After that, she decides to go to Vanessa's house. When did they become friends? I didn't know they were friends. I mean, I think I said in that other video that I haven't watched the 3rd and 4th season as much, but I didn't know they became friends at one point, but apparently they did. So, Candace goes to Vanessa's place and to give her some DVDs, and she sees Do-overinator and Perry fighting. She doesn't see Perry, but she does get there, and then she talks to Do-overinator, and then he says he's building his Do-overinator. And then he says it's pretty much something that can just take you back to the beginning of the day. So Candace, of course, presses it, and it takes them back to the very beginning of the day. So she decides that she can use this to try to bust her brothers. And also kind of changes a few things. Because she tells Phineas and Ferb that she's going to bust them sky high or something. Then that gives Phineas and Ferb the idea to, instead of make their thing on the ground, to do it sky high. Well, all this is going on, things begin disappearing, like spoons, tigers, and a bunch of other stuff. And the only people who remember it are Candace and Do-overinator, because they were in this bubble when the thing went off. So as more and more things start to disappear, it kind of gets a lot worse, and soon Phineas and Ferb themselves disappear. Even though nobody else does, so I don't know why they're the only one to do until later on, but so Candace decides she has to convince her friends who don't know them anymore to try to help her. But they don't believe her at first, so she has to try to convince them. Eventually she does, and they themselves get inside the portal. While this is going on, what's her name? Vanessa tries to convince her father to be good because he thinks that she sees him as a loser, so he tries to become the tri-state governor or something, and he does, but then she doesn't care. She says that he's not really a bad guy, and he's just really a good guy, but he had a tough childhood, so he says like, okay, maybe I am a good guy, and decides to be good. So he decides to try to build a machine to go and try to save humanity. And what was I gonna say? Phineas and everybody finds the do-over machine into place, and they decide that they need to bring it back and then destroy it there. So they build a machine to try to rip into a hole, which does, and they get there. But every time they try to get to the machine, they go back in time because the days are getting shorter and shorter and shorter until it's pretty much going to be destroy the universe. So they need to destroy that machine, and Do-overinator needs to make his machine, even though it itself has a chance of destroying the universe. So they both get to it, and then they got lost again, and then they both press the button, and it takes them back and restores everything. So after that, it seems that everything is good and they're going to get their happy ending, which they do, and of course they get the big song, and it was good, I guess. And I'm not really a fan of the songs in the later seasons because I just didn't like them as much. I liked some of them, but not all of them. Only a few, but the ones in this episode, I particularly liked, but they were good. So They sing one last song together. They share their memories. Do-overinator becomes a good guy, I think. Even though he's a bad guy, I think, in the Act Your Age episode, sorta. I don't know, but who cares? They get all that done, they have the last episode, and it ends. So, what did I think of it? It was good. I did like it, but I don't think it was the best last episode ever. I've seen a lot better, such as the Avatar one. The Avatar last episode was great, but this wasn't as good as that, but it was still good. I wasn't disappointed by it, but I did think it could at least been a little better. Like, for example, both Stacy and Jeremy didn't even appear. They weren't even mentioned. You think at least Jeremy and Candace would share a scene together, but they didn't because they didn't appear. So I was a little bit more disappointed by that. Another thing I was kind of hoping for, but even though I knew it probably wasn't going to happen, was Phineas's dad and Ferb's mom being mentioned, or at least as having a tiny appearance, because they weren't. I think the only time they ever got mentioned, or Phineas's dad at least, was in the Star Wars episode. Other than that, they've never been mentioned before, so I was disappointed by that, but it wasn't the worst, but what are you going to do? Also, towards the end of the episode, they said that it's not the true end. So I don't know if they're going to have more specials other than that Perry one after this, or if they plan a revival or something, but if they plan a revival or something like that, I hope they wait a few years. Just don't wait a year to decide, oh, we should come back. No, I think they should at least wait a good few years for this. Let it take a rest, about 5 years or so at the least, and I think that's even just too little, but for me, I think it should just be more of a special if they want to come back. And if they did come back, I don't know what they could really do, because they pretty much did everything. I think that's the reason they decided to end it, because they came up with pretty much every plot they could. I think I could come up with maybe a few more plots that I just came up with in the top of my head, but other than that, I think it was definitely a good time to end it. It was 8 long years, and it was starting to get just a little dull. It wasn't SpongeBob bad, nowhere near that, but I think it was starting to get a little old, so. And they need to make room for other shows like Gravity Falls, even though it's probably only going to last about 2 or 3 seasons because the creator wants it to, but, and Star vs. the Forces of Evil, but I just think it was time. But it did have a pretty good ending, not the best, not the worst. I wasn't disappointed by it, but I wasn't the most satisfied, but I was satisfied. I liked it. I think it ended on a good note, and I liked it. It was a good episode. It's sad to see Phineas and Ferb go. It started in 2007, almost 10 years, but because I usually think that's maybe be the top for a lot of shows, 10 years. Not every show, it's still doing good, then it should stay, but usually for me, I think 10 years is a good time to stop it if you're a long-running show. But I liked it, and I guess that's all I really had to say. Thanks for watching. Take care.